What's up, Taiwan? I'm Jaime Ocon with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. The deadline for candidates to register in Taiwan's presidential elections is just 2 weeks away, but the four main contenders are still sorting out who will appear on ballots in January. Tiffany Wong has the story.
These boxes contain over 1 million petition signatures. They're the names of people who support Foxconn founder Terry Kuo's bid to run as an independent candidate in January's presidential election. That's triple the number of signatures he needs to qualify. But some are questioning how many signatures are legitimate. Kuo's petition drive has been plagued by accusations of fraud and bribery. Despite this, the billionaire is hopeful.
每一份联署书对我都是一份责任，每一份联署书对我都是一份鞭策。
Taiwan's Central Election Commission will now check the signatures and announce whether Kuo has enough to enter the race on November 14th. But Kuo isn't the only question mark hanging over the election. With just 2 weeks left to decide who will be on the ballot, the other two opposition candidates are struggling to form a joint ticket. They both want to defeat Lai Ching-te of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP. But to run together, one will have to drop out of the race and run as vice president. Neither has shown signs they're willing to do this. The Kuomintang, or KMT, backing candidate Hou You-yi, insists that cooperation is still possible.
朱立伦跟侯友宜总统参选人从来没有讲过，今天是所谓的截止日。直接跟大家讲啊，火车根本还没到站。
But Taiwan People's Party candidate Ko Wen-je says a KMT proposal to have lawmakers decide who will drop out would spell the end of his campaign.
国民党跟民众党的立委候选人大家来投票。那我后来算一算，他们有69个立委候选人，我们是11个，这个还没投都知道结果了。
With the opposition split in three, the DPP's Lai Ching-te says he's ready for the challenge ahead.
不管蓝白合不合，赖清德都是最好的选择。另外，我们欢迎郭台铭参选总统，但是也敬请社会大众能够票投赖清德。
And Lai's team might be getting bigger. Xiaobi Kim, Taiwan's representative to the U.S. and one of Lai's top choices for running mate, is heading back to Taiwan just in time for the candidate registration deadline. There are still many questions as the election nears, but with the registration approaching fast, voters won't have to wait much longer to find out the answers. Lian Lian and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Japan and the Philippines are restarting talks on military cooperation. Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio and Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. met in Manila to discuss letting Japanese troops into the Philippines and vice versa. This mutual access would allow for joint training. Japan also pledged $4 million to the Philippines to help build up its coastal radar systems. Both countries say they share concerns over China's aggressive behavior in the South and East China Seas. The U.S. and China have held, quote, candid talks in Beijing on maritime issues in the South China Sea. The U.S. State Department's China coordinator and China's Boundary and Ocean Affairs head discussed easing tensions in one of the world's most contested regions. Around a third of global trade passes through the South China Sea. The U.S. raised concerns over what it calls dangerous and unlawful actions by China. These include a recent Chinese fighter's close-range interception of a U.S. bomber. The meeting also comes one day after the U.S. sent a guided missile destroyer into the South China Sea in a freedom of navigation exercise. One of the world's biggest car shows has been exhibiting the latest EV models from international companies. Our reporter Sandy Chi was in Tokyo to take a look at how the industry has been doing in recent years.
Small cars, fancy cars, big trucks. All of these have something in common. They are electric vehicles, or EVs, cars that are considered eco-friendlier and more sustainable. This is the Japan Mobility Show, returning after a 4-year break. During this period, the industry was hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, ending a decade of continuous growth for the industry. But the drop did not stop this year's event, with hundreds of companies attending, with EVs among the star attractions. And that's no surprise. Many countries have vowed to phase out the sale of new gas motor cars in the coming years, as they try to reduce carbon emissions. With governments giving incentives to boost sales and car makers pumping out new models, sales in EVs have grown by 40% in the past half year. 14 million EVs are expected to be sold this year. And the largest market is in China, with nearly 60% of all registrations. Among the companies displaying in Tokyo is BYD, one of China's biggest EV makers.
It's got a very big meaning for BYD because this is Japan Mobility Show, and also Chinese company being on Japanese Motor Show has a really big meaning because we are only one Chinese auto company in Japan. We really focus on Japanese market by showing all of these kind of like high technology cars in Japan.
Driven by EVs, China is set to become the world's largest exporter of cars this year, overtaking Japan. But not everyone is welcoming China's rise in the auto industry.
Japanese car makers, the US car makers, they are the primary competitors. So they should be the ones that's most worried, or also some European automobile industry. I believe all the countries have set up their own protective acts or some regulations to reduce the amount of the cars imported from China.
While some governments are wary of Chinese dominance in the EVs, there's plenty of competition from other manufacturers. Among them is Taiwan's MIH Consortium, an alliance of companies including iPhone manufacturer Foxconn. They see an opportunity to break up the monopoly of traditional car makers.
So we're providing a platform for people to hop on, the new players, new things, software-driven, give the traditional guy a pressure to expedite their revolution. So by 2030, I think half of the adoption for the EV will then prevail. Then also adoption of a smart vehicle for a better lifestyle will prevail. So this is going to happen quickly, as you can imagine. So autonomous drive, the AI enhanced software.
With millions more EVs set to hit the roads in the coming years, the world envisioned by companies like MIH may arrive sooner than later. What is less clear is who will benefit most from the revolution, and if China will continue to lead the way. Kamishun Sanichi for TaiwanPlus.
At least 15 people have been killed and over 60 injured after an Israeli airstrike on an ambulance evacuating wounded people from northern Gaza. Israel's military says Hamas was using the ambulance and it accused it of using the vehicles to move soldiers and weapons. It has not provided evidence for those claims. The airstrike was part of Israel's response to Hamas attacks that have since killed over 1,400 Israelis in early October. Gaza's health ministry says that more than 9,000 Palestinians have been killed in the enclave since the conflict began. The skulls of 4 warriors from the indigenous Paiwan people are on their way back to Taiwan from Scotland. Japanese troops had taken the skulls as war trophies during an 1874 expedition to Taiwan. Scotland's University of Edinburgh had then added them to its collection in 1907. This is the first time a foreign institution has given back the seized remains of indigenous Taiwanese people. The remains will go on temporary display at the National Museum of Prehistory until a permanent resting place is arranged. A Taitung landmark for the local indigenous music scene is set to close at the end of the year. Our reporter Eugene Huang has more.
Famous singer Jia is just one of the talents from Taiwan's indigenous communities to perform on this stage in the southeastern city of Taitung. Known as Tiehua Music Village, the venue has been an important base for indigenous musicians, accommodating superstars and local amateurs alike. The music scene here has been a boon for tourism, but the village's operators have announced it will close at the end of the year. Tiehua Village was originally a warehouse site around the Taitung railway station. For years, the structures were left disused. An NGO focusing on regional revitalization stepped in 2009 and set about giving the area a facelift. Aside from live music, there's also a market selling indigenous craft works and products from independent farmers. Though Tiehua Village is set to close, the foundation that runs it says it will find another way to support the local community.
现实的营运还有未来的那个一个整体的考量底下，我们就先自己把它做一个好好的一个转型啊。第一个就是我们先把铁花村先结束掉。
那对县府而言，虽然感到遗憾，但是我们也只能够尊重铁花村他们目前的经营方式。当然，如果说他们有其他的需求，包括地点或其他的需求的话，我们台东县政府当然会很乐意去协助。
Taiwan Music Village is set to hold its final show on the last day of the year. After that, the county government will take over management of the site. It says it hopes to preserve something of the village spirit moving forward. Zhang Su and Yujin Huang for TaiwanPlus.
A Taiwanese modern dance troupe has won an award at the Teresa Pomodoro International Performance Competition in Italy. Taiwan's Hung dance production was one of 13 troupes taking part. Judges awarded its routine, entitled Birdie, an award for the preservation of human cultural heritage. They say the dance symbolizes a dream of freedom and the value of human culture that needs to be protected. The competition is a major event in the dance world, with over 80,000 participants to date. Decades ago, Taiwan's Matsu Islands were on the front lines of conflict between Taiwan and China. Now the remnants of war are being turned into something else. Louise Watt reports.
This former military power plant on Taiwan's Matsu Islands is now the base for an art installation, illuminating the country's wartime history.
我们想要用光去让参观者可以回到当时的时空背景，然后可以理解当时的大概所有的岛上居民或是居民之间的生活的状态。
The power plant is opening to the public as part of the Matsu Biennial, an art exhibition that is transforming tunnels, air raid shelters and strongholds.
希望走进去的观众可以感觉到有电流经过皮肤到身体里，然后他可以感觉到电场的这个心跳。
The setting also reminds visitors to Matsu's main island of the ongoing threat of a Chinese invasion. China's coastal province of Fujian can be seen just across the water. The Matsu Islands were key strongholds for Chinese nationalist forces who fled to Taiwan in 1949 on losing the Chinese Civil War. Now, many of the strongholds and bomb shelters that islanders had to use in the 1950s and 60s lie abandoned. But China still threatens to take Taiwan by force, even as Taiwanese increasingly see themselves as separate from China. One artist who helped curate the biennial says they're turning Matsu into an island not of war, but of art.
软实力我们不怕它，我们怕它被它封锁。所以说你在马祖竖一个旗，我是在这边弄个艺术，你有种你在大陆，你也给我做一个用文化来互相抗争。
Artists participating in these unusual exhibitions hope that by reminding visitors of Taiwan's wartime history, their art can help keep the hard-earned yet tense peace between Taiwan and China. Alex Chen and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
An endangered leopard cat has been spotted at a village in southern Taiwan for the first time in over 3 decades. One of the rare felines was caught on infrared camera outside Ocon Township in Yunlin County. They haven't been there since 1988. The Agriculture Ministry has been working with a local university to track wildlife in the area. They've seen more and more leopard cats in the county in the last few years, giving hope that their numbers are on the rise. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, have a look at Mexicans and Bolivians honoring the dead with Day of the Dead or Dia de los Muertos celebrations. I'm Jaime Ocon. Take care and see you next time.
I'm Leslie Liao in New York City, and this is TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.